The Convention People's Party set for its National Delegates Congress tomorrow at Sunyani. Let's get an update from the chairperson of the party, Madam Samia Nkrumah. Good afternoon to you, Madam Nkrumah, and thanks for joining us. We gather that all is set for the Congress. What should we be expecting? And we are talking about the CPP's Congress scheduled for later. We understand that the chairperson, Madam Samia Nkrumah, has arrived in Sunyani. We are working our phone lines trying to get her and speak to her to get an understanding of what's going to happen. But we can move on to other stories. And yesterday, President Mahama launched the first of the 200 promised Community Day senior high schools at Ekumfi Otom in the Central Region. The project, built at the hometown of the late President John Evans Atta Mills, was to honor him. The government has promised to build 200 Community Day SHS across the country, and the World Bank is also supporting the government to build additional day secondary schools. Here are excerpts of the launch. In an address to the gathering, President John Mahama said 123 of such schools are being worked on across the country. He promised the schools of excellence will change deprived communities.
Work has since started in another 50 communities on the Community Day schools, bringing the total number of schools currently being worked upon to 123. If we were in school and we're supposed to mark this achievement, 123 of 200 is already a pass mark. The E-shaped school block that is changing the landscape in many of our underserved communities all over the country is a 4-level structure signifying excellence. When you see the E on that block, it means excellence.
President Mahama also launched the progressively free senior high school policy, which will take off this academic year.
The second commitment we are redeeming today is the implementation of the progressively free secondary education in Ghana. The roadmap for the implementation of this constitutional provision, as announced in my 2014 State of the Nation address, is very much on course and is starting this academic year. Beginning this academic year, we are removing fees for all-day students attending public senior high school. This is a well-targeted intervention aimed at increasing equitable access to senior secondary education in our country.
Let's go back to the Convention People's Party and talk about their National Delegates Congress, which is happening tomorrow. We have on the telephone lines the chairperson of the party, Madam Samia Nkrumah. Good afternoon to you, Madam Nkrumah, and thank you very much for joining us. We understand all is set for tomorrow's Congress. Can you kindly tell us what is expected?
Yes, good afternoon to you. And indeed, yes, we are all excited, we are ready, we are prepared. Tomorrow we go to Congress to elect the new set of leaders at the national level, national chairperson or chairman, general secretary and organizer.
Can we take very well?
We are ready. And we are looking forward to a very successful Congress in Sunyani.
Kindly take us through some of the key positions and the interesting names coming up.
Oh, they are all solid CPP activists, people who've contributed to the party over the years. Naturally, as you know, Professor Delali is the only contender for the national chairmanship slot, and we are solidly behind him. This time, what is most encouraging is that the outgoing chairman, that is me, and the incoming chairman, Professor Delali, are on very good terms, and there will be a sense of continuity in all the things we've initiated. So we are going ahead with our court cases, one for the release of the confiscated assets of the CPP, and two, our anti-GMO case that is currently in court. So we will continue with our position on national issues, and that is a very good sign.
You're also vying for the flag bearership position. We wish you all the best indeed, but are you confident of success?
Definitely success for the CPP with the right combination of leaders at that level. I think we will see an energetic, dynamic CPP.
Okay.
2016 is a special year for us. Indeed, it's a spiritual year, I would dare say, because it will be 50 years after the illegal overthrow of the CPP government under Osajifo Kwame Nkrumah's leadership. So for us, it's a year when we would want to tell the people of Ghana that Nkrumah is back. The ideas of Osajifo will be back. We are here to complete the unfinished agenda that Osajifo started for Ghana to be a dignified nation, a strong nation, a productive nation, for responsible management of our resources. We are basically here to continue the decolonization journey that was begun with Osajifo. And 2016, we will be ready. We will have the right combination of leaders in place, and we are energized. We are waiting to connect with the people of Ghana.
Madam Nkrumah, what's your aim for going for this position? The CPP hasn't had a flag bearer win the national elections before.
Yes, but that doesn't mean it cannot happen. I think everybody is aware of our difficulty. Our economic woes are because we abandoned economic planning, we abandoned a vision for development that puts the people at the center of development.
Okay.
So we know that with the CPP at the helm of affairs, things will change.
Okay.
Since '92, we've had only two parties governing Ghana, and things have not changed much. So it is time, 2016, it is time for genuine change, a shift in the direction of our...
Very well. Thank you very much. That's CPP Chairperson, Madam Samia Nkrumah. We appreciate your time. You had to move away from a meeting to speak to us. But we can go back to our earlier story about the Community Day School, where Education Minister Professor Nana Jane Opukwajiman says government has made progress in increasing access to secondary education across the country.
We have seen progress in expanding access. The number of senior high schools has increased from 556 in 2004 to 650 in 2015, and I'm not including the private schools. For instance, only 2 years ago, in 2013, 122,287 students, representing 29% of the total number of candidates placed, did not enroll. Those coming from the poorest 20% of households, the most deprived districts, or from rural areas, were about 5 to 6 times less likely to access secondary education. Limited opportunities to those from rural areas and from poor households are attributable to limited physical access in underserved communities and, of course, financial challenges.
Reacting to the launch of the progressively free senior high school policy on the AM show today, the Nasara coordinator of the opposition New Patriotic Party accused the NDC government of doing little to enhance education, adding that the free SHS will be short-lived.
If you have people who sit down and their trademark is and truthfulness. This is where we get to. He says that since independence, no government has invested in education like this government. That's not true. Look, let me tell you, GDP, 4% of whatever they spent out of GDP for infrastructure today, okay, is what we are witnessing. 8 years of MPP, 9% thereabout was spent. You are in your 7th year. What have you done? Well, the point I want to make, I'll clarify it for you. Don't worry. How can you get it? Confusing. Yeah, of course. Why wouldn't you be confused? Because you lied.
You said that you are using only 4% of gross domestic product.
Absolutely, for infrastructure. So if he says no government has done whatever they have done, he doesn't even know what he's talking about. You have told Ghanaians here that you are going to build 200 secondary schools. My good brother should be able to tell us how many secondary schools have been finished in 7 years down the line. How many have you finished? You sit here and throw dust in the eyes of people. Only 3 or 4. Since 2012, only 3 or 4.
But in a quick response, a deputy communications director of the ruling NDC said work is ongoing to complete all 200 community day senior high schools.
I said we've awarded 123 to contractors. They are building. I know of several of them who have been completed.
It's not only 3.
Okay, let's even assume that only 1 has been completed. The fact of the matter is that 123 has been awarded. Let's assume that only 1 has been completed. What is the point? The point is that we are going to build 200. The other 50 will be awarded very soon. And by next year,
by the close of next year, we would have built the 200 schools.
You see, development is a process. Development is not an event. You can't say you are building a house today and next week you'll be able to finish the house by tomorrow.
You've changed what
the most important thing that we didn't say.
But you gave a promise that by the close of the 4 years.
No. We said, can you allow me? We said we'll build. Go and check our manifesto. We are very careful when we put words down and we choose our words very carefully. We said we are going to build 200 day secondary schools. It's in the manifesto. We didn't say those schools will be completed by 2016. We didn't expect that all those schools will be completed by 2016. Go and check the manifesto. I would have wished that by close of December 2015, we have finished all those schools. But we've not been able to finish. Our work is in progress and we'll do it.
So you heard Fred Avonyo, an NDC communicator. Now, investigative journalist Aremeyaw Naz is at the Supreme Court today to meet the embattled judges he accused of taking bribes to influence their judgments. Joy News' Kwachi Afrenyama spoke to us earlier about the case.
This committee is not dealing with that particular matter, whether or not to show the video. That is a matter that has been for the High Court, which will be heard on next week, the 22nd of September. Interestingly, the same day announced to start premiering this video. But the committee, as I was mentioning earlier, is expected to meet with about 5 of these circuit court judges and magistrates. They will cross-examine Anas because at the previous sitting, what happened was that they had the opportunity to view this investigative piece. So based on this evidence that was presented to the committee, they will cross-examine Anas on that. The other expectation is that they will be officially charged at the committee sitting today as well. Judges will be implicated in this. We'll ask a number of questions. From the interactions I had with them, it is clear that they have a number of issues to raise. They will be punching holes in what Anas says is evidence that implicates them in this bribery scandal. That is expected to take a while, some hours, before they conclude today's sentence.
And we're staying with the conversation about Aremeyaw concerning his expose. And earlier he put some details of some of his investigation on Justice Anso Jiabo. He is a High Court judge in Tamale, and I spoke to my colleague Beatrice about that. I also had the opportunity to watch the video, 20-minute video, about 20-minute video by Anas, and I shared what I saw with Beatrice earlier on News Desk. Justice Anso Jiabo meets with Anas, who pretends to be a relative of the suspect or the person who has been sentenced. This is a guy who has been sentenced for rape. It means he was found guilty and sentenced. And so they go meet the guy, the judge, through his driver. His driver is the connection man, and the driver is known as Driver Charles, and he acts as the connection man. He was given 20 Ghana cedis initially, and then he created the contact with the judge. Now they went and met the judge in his house in Tamale for the deal. And the judge talked about the identity of the girl. Is she really, as she claimed, to be her father's daughter? And her age came up. All these things didn't really make much sense. But what the conversation went on for a while, it dilly-dallied, and then they came to what Anas or Tiger Eye wanted. They wanted the rapist, the said rapist, to be set free. And so they spoke about some amount of money, 2,000 Ghana cedis. Now what I want to do is to really read to you some quotes. This is coming from Anas's Facebook page. He's putting transcripts of his interaction with the judges he claims alleges fraud against. Now Judge Ansu says, so I'll ask him to take you to the state attorney, and then you find something and put it in an envelope. Don't bring it like this. And into brackets, referring to the money Tiger I gave him, 200 Ghana cedis, 300 Ghana cedis. Whatever your strength would be, put it in an envelope nicely. When you come, we'll talk to him, that you are begging him. The boy is your elder brother, and the boy here is referring to the said rapist. Exactly. The boy is your elder brother, and it's because of him you have come from university to beg him. Any help he can offer, but as to the meeting between us, don't tell him. And this is quoted, this is a quote that Anas is giving to Judge Ansu. This is coming, according to Anas, it's coming from Judge Ansu. So those were details from Anas's Facebook about Justice Anso Jiabo, a Tamale High Court judge who took 2,000 Ghana cedis to set free a rapist. That's according to Anas. I also talked about what I saw in Anas's video, which I had the privilege to watch. I saw money being exchanged, or money changing hands. We saw monies in bundles put on tables of men said to be judges, and we saw some offer services and ask for sex in return. This particular person was said to be a judicial staff, but we know that on the 22nd of this month, the video may or may not be aired. We'll find out what happens. The injunction will decide if it's granted. The application, if granted, will tell us what will happen, whether or not we'll get to watch it. But right now, let's go to Kwachi Afre Nyama. He's at the court where the cross-examination of Anas Aremeyaw is expected to happen. Hello, Afre. What can you report?
Well, the committee has suspended sittings until 25th. In fact, Anas himself was here about an hour and a half ago, and he was discharged by the committee. Legal representatives for some of the circuit court judges and magistrates. One of them is here with me, Mr. Charles Bentum. He met the committee today. And Mr. Bentum, so what went on really today?
The committee informed us that they have had notice of our application for injunction that was filed and is scheduled to be taken next week, the 2nd of September 2015. They want to adjourn the further hearing of this inquiry to abide by the outcome of the application one way or the other. So the matter stands now adjourned to the 5th of September 2015.
So just to be clear, the committee wants the High Court to hear the case on the 22nd, that's Tuesday, before, they can sit afterwards. So obviously 25th will be after that first hearing.
Okay. The committee wants the application for injunction, and I stress the application for injunction, to be heard on Tuesday, the 22nd of September 2015, and to know the outcome one way or the other before they decide to proceed. So they have rescheduled it to the 25th of September 2015.
And of course, you've been pushing along that the committee should not sit at all, and that's why you're in court. What does this decision mean for you and your client?
Well, this is an interlocutory application. It is not the substantive action that we filed in court. The substantive action will have to go through the usual court processes the defendant we sued, which is the Judicial Council, had filed an appearance in court, and that appearance is conditional appearance. And so that means that the processes are yet to undergo several other hearings in court, and we need to wait for that to articulate. For now, we are looking at the application for injunction, and so I don't want anybody to confuse that interlocutory application with the substantive main case stuff that we sent to court.
And the point of the clarity I was seeking, I was asking that what does the committee's decision to suspend sessions until 21st mean to you and your client?
Well, it means that they have respected the fact that we have filed an injunction which the law requires them to take notice and halt whatever they are doing until it is heard. I mean, the committee are made up of eminent persons, knowledgeable in law, and they know that once the application is filed, they know that they will have to abide by the outcome of they have to allow their proceedings to abide by the outcome of the hearing of the application for injunction.
Okay, so Francisca Charles Bentum, lawyer for some of these, for the circuit court and magistrate who was expected to appear before the investigative committee set up by the Chief Justice Charles Bentum there. So the committee will resume sitting on the 21st, that's next week, Friday, as you heard him say. That will be after this application for interlocutory injunction is heard on Tuesday. Interestingly, as we know, the same day ANAS is expected to premiere this investigative piece.
Exactly. Tuesday will be an interesting day, but thank you very much, Kwachi Alfred Nyama from the court. Now, newly elected president of the Ghana Bar Association is promising members dedicated leadership to resolve what he describes as any troubling issues confronting the association. Benson Nutukui polled 496 out of 808 votes to beat two other contenders in an election to climax the bar conference in Kumasi in the Ashanti region amidst the judiciary bribery scandal. Felix Ntrokwa garnered 313 votes, with Bennett Wilson Tamaklu managing 7 ballots. In a victory speech, a delighted Benson Nutukui assured members of strengthening the association's front.
My colleague candidates for the spirited campaign which we all conducted. I bet it generated a lot of interest in matters affecting the nation. I'm extremely grateful to you. I wish to assure every member of the association that all issues raised and discussed in this campaign will receive my full attention. Once again, I thank you very much and wish all of us traveling mercies. God bless GBA. God bless us all.
You're still watching Joy News Today with me, Francisca Kakra. For some quick break right now. We'll bring you more stories after. Welcome back to Joy News Today. The National Disaster Management Organization, NADMO, is warning the country could be seeing a few more tragedies involving building cave-ins, going by its investigations into similar incidents in the last 3 years. The latest such collapse claimed the life of first Vice President of the Ghana Chamber of Commerce and Industry, Prosper Adabla, and 2 others at the construction site near the President's residence at Cantonment here in Accra. Acting National Coordinator of NADMO, Brigadier General Francis Vipsanziri, told the media in Accra evidence gathered from their investigations into similar cave-ins suggests many multi-story buildings are poorly constructed. He says the AMA will have to take swift steps to enforce bylaws on building projects.
The occurrences of such events impacts negatively on us as a nation by creating hardships, which include loss of lives, temporary and permanent physical traumas, psychological traumas, internally displaced persons, loss of livelihoods, damage to infrastructure and other social amenities. These occurrences challenge our goals as disaster managers That is, to save lives, to prevent injuries, and to protect properties and the environment. The NADMO technical advisory committees are still investigating and will make appropriate recommendations to state institutions with responsibility for enforcement to mitigate such occurrences. However, NADMO recommends to the general public, builders, buyers, landlords, residents, and tenants the following. Ensure that your building structures are not only designed by qualified engineering practitioners, they must also be supervised by engineering practitioners who are capable of interpreting the design intent. Multi-story buildings, that is 3-story and above, and heavy loaded buildings should strictly be designed and supervised by qualified professional engineers and architects. Lightly loaded structures, typically 1- and 2-story buildings, must adhere to the building guide formulated by NADMO. With the proliferation of multi-story buildings in the country, there is the possibility that more buildings could collapse if no urgent action is taken. NADMO is therefore advising all occupants of buildings, especially those occupying multi-story structures, to appraise themselves of the recommendations being made here.
The West African Examinations Council has finally released the results for this year's BC candidates, but some 6,812 of them will not have access to their results. WAEC is withholding their results because they are investigating the students who are believed to have engaged in exam malpractices. Fred Smith has more.
You recall that during the WASI exam, we had that, the BEC exam, we had that some exam leakages had taken place, and so some papers were even cancelled and the candidates had to rewrite. And just after writing them, the WAEC is saying that they've discovered that nearly 7,000 of the candidates had their, it's not a huge number though, considering how many groups. 7,000 is a lot of people that we're talking about, and WAEC says they've commenced investigation into this. They're not going to rest on it because year after year they have seen some of these exam malpractices. And it's still a suspicion of WAEC, and so their investigation will determine whether indeed these people cheated in the exam or not. And that's been the biggest headache of WAEC, not just in Ghana, exam bodies around the world. Statement would not say how long the investigations would take, and in most investigations, depending on the facts available to you and what you'll be able to lay hands on, that's what will determine the length of that investigation. But we shouldn't forget that these candidates are people who want to go to further their education, and so we should take that into consideration and ensure that we come to some conclusions as soon as possible.
Let's now get the latest in business. Accountants in Ghana are set to freely offer their services to startups. The move is to help address bookkeeping challenges that SMEs are confronted with. President of the Institute of Chartered Accountants Ghana, Professor Kebio Manientri, spoke to Joy Business at the second 2015 induction of accountants in Accra.
The meeting brought together qualified accountants of the Institute of Chartered Accountants Ghana (ICAG) to undergo final training on the accounting laws, branding among others to enable them work as professionals. Business and legal consultant Penelope Jones-Mensah, addressing the accountants, urged them to make their services readily available for SMEs. She explains to Joy Business how this could be done.
The small-scale hairdressers, you have even the taxi drivers, you have all these small businesses that have no idea how to go about bookkeeping. Now, if the accountants can find a way of reaching out to these people, these businesses, it would make their businesses grow, because then once they keep good books, they would be eligible for loans. So if the accounting profession would come out with some sort of a program like that, where those that can't afford their services can go and tap into their resources. Ultimately, they would grow and they would become the high-level clients that we all want.
The ICAG meanwhile maintains it is ready to ensure experienced accountants support SMEs.
In the 2014-16 agenda of the presidency of the Institute of Chartered Accountants Ghana, we've put in a plan to ensure that our experienced accountants who have retired can give back to society by way of providing advisory services to SMEs. And so the call from the guest speaker is in the right direction. We believe that our accountants will come and offer that kind of services. A pro bono service means that you're going to give something back to society. You are not going to receive anything for giving that particular service. So it depends on the individual. But we are trumpeting it to make sure that they would know that, yes, having qualified, having worked in Ghana for all these years, it is time for me to say that, hey, society, this is what I can give to you.
Government has dismissed suggestions there is a looming food shortage. Some farmers and traders have predicted the low rainfall patterns recorded this year is likely to lead to a shortfall in the supply of food. The National Buffer Stock Company has also confirmed the low rainfall has led to shortages in the supply of grains onto the market. But Food and Agri Minister Fifi Kwete assures Joy Business the situation is under control.
In terms of our own food sufficiency for this year, 2015, I wouldn't say we have gone below food sufficiency at all. But what it is that because we are pushing through a poultry agenda, what we are calling a broiler revitalization project, it means that we need to always make sure that the volumes are such that we can take care not just of humans, but also of poultry and livestock. So some of those considerations are reasons why sometimes when we gauge what is going to happen, we may make a determination to allow for some limited importation if it is we feel that we need to bring that in order to keep a balance not just for humans but also for poultry. But it's not something that we have decided as yet. No.
We're worried about the negative impact of rate hikes on emerging economies like Ghana. That was one of the major reasons why the U.S. Central Bank decided to keep its key lending rates unchanged at 0 for 9th year running. But what does this mean for Ghana? George Rafe has more.
For many, a rate increase for the first time in several years wouldn't have been good for Ghana. This is because of how the country is now more exposed to developments in the U.S. market, especially because of our Eurobond issuance. A rate increase could have resulted in some American investors in Ghana's bonds moving back to the U.S. market, or they might have to be compensated with higher interest rates on the country's bonds. This could force government to increase taxes to make up for these expensive bonds if they are not able to invest these Eurobond funds in projects that will pay for itself. But for the Federal Reserve Chair, Janet Yellen, they couldn't have afforded to rock the boat for emerging economies like Ghana by increasing their rates.
We saw very substantial economies that are important producers of commodities. We've seen significant outflows of capital from those countries, pressures on their exchange rates, and concerns about their performance going forward. So a lot of our focus has been on risks, emerging markets more generally, and how they may.
However, the group managing director of Hydefield Capital, Mahama Idrisu, managers of the economy shouldn't be too excited by this development.
For some investment funds, they are looking at the grading of the country, economic indicators and fundamentals. And for what we are going through trying to manage our debt at that level of percentage, we are looking at our fundamentals and we are looking at the nature of our economy. I don't think it's going to be a complete advantage, even though we may have some level of guarantee from World Bank or probably having a fund that could cushion the risk that people are looking at.
But with signals from the U.S. Central Bank that a rate hike is expected before the end of this year, then maybe the time has come for government to take a second look at the issuance of these Eurobonds.
That's it for business. Join Baba Tando in a minute with sports. Well, Well, that's it for Joy News today. Let's quickly wrap up with the headlines. And cross-examination of investigative journalist Aremeyaw adjourned to next Friday, September 25. For more news, log on to myjoyonline.com. I'm Francisca Kakrapos, and thank you very much for your company. Bye-bye.